All right, you've got your inlet sites picked out, you've hung your power unit, and you've charted the simplest, straightest route for the tubing. Now you're ready to get out the toolbox to begin installing your inlet valves. First, use a screwdriver to wedge the molding aside, then take a wire hanger and snip a straight piece from it. Insert the wire into the chuck of your drill. And then, holding the drill vertically, right beneath the intended inlet site, slowly drill down into the floor alongside the baseboard or where the wall and floor intersect. Then go downstairs. There's the wire. Now you can see exactly where the inlet's going to be right above you. Next, drill a 2 1/4 inch diameter hole. That's about 5.4 centimeters in the bottom of the hollow wall through what's called the sole plate. Make sure you're cutting in between the walls. The tubing is 2 inches or 5 centimeters in diameter, so the hole will give you some room to manipulate the tubing. Now grab a flashlight and take a peek for obstructions. If it looks clear, take a piece of tubing and run it up to check for obstructions. If there are obstructions, you may need to move the inlet site. If there are no obstructions, it's time to go back upstairs and mark the inlet location on the wall. First, measure up to the center of the electrical outlet. Then, measure up from the floor the same distance at the proposed inlet site. This will be the center of your inlet valve. Take a wall mounting bracket, cut or snap off the new construction flange, and dispose of it. In new construction, nail the tab to the stud. Use a level, then measure and create a precise box using these dimensions. Take a utility knife and score the outside lines. Then, use the utility knife or a drywall saw to cut a hole through the drywall. Now it's time for some fittings. Make sure the open end faces the direction it will eventually meet the tubing, usually straight down. If your tubing has to run from the attic, remember that the opening of the 90-degree fitting will have to face upward. When applying glue, never apply it to the inside of fittings or tubing. Apply glue only to the outside of the tubing. This will prevent glue from creating obstructions inside the tubing, which could clog your system. Put some glue around the outside of the mounting bracket. Then twist the 90-degree fitting into place. You will need to install the low voltage wire before you install the tubing. First, run about 6 inches of wire through the bracket guide hole. Then, strip an inch of insulation from the low voltage wires and attach each end to one of the screws on the back of the inlet valve. Now, attach a weight to the end of the low voltage wire and drop it down to the basement or crawl space. Gently insert the mounting bracket into the wall hole, first down, then up, centering it. Get a wire hanger and insert the hooked end of the hanger down into the 90-degree elbow to hold the bracket in place. Then slide the inlet valve into the mounting bracket. Now just screw the valve into place. A word of caution, inlet kits come with both long and short screws, so be sure to use the short screw in the hole facing the elbow since the long screw could puncture it. Remember to refer to the manual for full details. If you can't locate a hollow wall or the space between your walls isn't wide enough, there are 2 alternatives. The first, as we've already discussed, is to run the tubing through a concealed area such as the inside of a closet. Then run the tubing downward. The other is to forget the wall entirely and use a floor-mounted inlet. For 2-story homes, you'll need 1 or more inlets on each floor. Instead of trying to line up inlets from one floor to the next, the easiest and best way to handle second-story inlets is to run a separate line from the upstairs inlet valve to another branch or to the main trunk line. Upstairs, beneath the site you selected for the inlet, cut a hole just large enough to allow you to reach the second floor sole plate. Then, from the basement, insert a length of tubing long enough to reach through the hole in the second floor sole plate to the site for the valve. Your goal is to fit the top of the tubing inside the inlet valve installed in the second-story wall. Of course, installing the inlet valve is the same as before. And remember, other ways to reach the upstairs in your home are through the interiors of closets or pantries, beneath a staircase, or with floor inlets. If you're planning to install a sweep inlet, an automatic dustpan, a very popular option for the kitchen, mudroom, and bath, here are some pointers. First, determine the best place to install the sweep inlet, usually beneath a cabinet, and remove any molding or baseboard. Then drill a pilot hole and find the wire in the floor below. Once again, drill up through the floor to check for obstructions and to make sure you can connect the tubing to the main line. If there are no obstructions, enlarge the hole in the floor beneath the cabinet and check the clearances. Now return to the kitchen to measure and saw the rectangular hole for the sweep inlet and fasten the inlet into place. In the basement, attach the tubing and string the low voltage wire just as you would for any inlet.